is a presentation of SIRTOBA Media and COMI Media Incorporated.
Welcome, one and all. It's that time again. It's time for Total Football Talk Extra. I am your host, Drew Willingham, along with a special guest host. We have to give a special guest intro. Welcome back, Mr. Ryan McCarthy.
Turn up the X.
Gotta get back in the camera view. It was a little bit outside the camera view, but yes, we are back for Total Football Talk Extra. Mr. Ryan McCarthy and I here for episode 10 of Total Football Talk Extras. We have to talk about the Roughriders advancing to the West Finals with the win over the BC Lions. We are back again for episode 10. We got much more to discuss. Thank you to those of you who are here in the chat. Start it on up. Get some things coming because we have a whole lot to do and discuss here with the opening drive.
All right, let's go. We got trips right at 42, 989 on two. Ready? Ready.
And here at the opening drive, we've discussed the Division Semifinals, where this past Saturday we had two games, two matchups between four teams. The first one was the Ottawa Redblacks traveling to Toronto to take on the Argonauts. And in our second game, we had the BC Lions, who traveled to Saskatchewan to take on the Roughriders. You know, we had a 3 o'clock game for the first one, a 6:30 game for the second. First round bye for the best two teams between the East and West divisions, Montreal Alouettes and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Surprisingly, when you think about how the season started, totally different story for some teams, but Mr. McCarthy himself called it and said that these teams were going to make the playoffs. I have to give a special shout out to him before we discuss the first of two games from this past week. And with the first game that we have, let's go ahead and go to the East. Well, right here, we'll look at the Ottawa Redblacks and the Toronto Argonauts. 38-58 right here for this division semifinals matchup. When you look at this right here, Chad Kelly comes in, slings 4 touchdowns, 358 passing yards, was nearly perfect in completions as well, 18-20 for completions on the day. Kadeem Carey had 9 carries for 43 yards, was a leading rusher, but Chad Kelly, the quarterback himself, would steal the day on the ground and would have a rushing touchdown with 2 carries for 29 yards. Mackay Polk leads the way in receptions with 4, but also has 158 yards in receiving yards, along with a touchdown, averaging 39.5 yards per catch. Devarius Daniels has 4 catches for 88 yards, along with 2 receiving touchdowns. And Jake Herslow has 4 receptions for 47 yards, along with a touchdown. Great production for those 4 receiving touchdowns, and great production on the defense, too. You got to look at the fact that they had 2 interceptions from Winton McManus and Benji Franklin on the day, both combined for 18 tackles. You got to look at McManus had 10 tackles himself. Benji Franklin had 8 himself. Both of them also contributed with those interceptions. When you look at the kicking side of it, our man Lira Our man Liram stepped up, Ryan. He mother-fathering did. He really did. He had 3 field goals out of 3 attempts, 100% on kicking field goals for the day, and had a long of 53 yards. Shout out to Liram for what he did in this game, and shout out to myself for getting his name right. Now, looking at the other side for the Redblacks, got to take a look at Drew Brown. Not the same way as my name is spelled, but with a U, kind of like Andrew Jones. The man has a cool name, but he doesn't have a cool ending in this game as he got mollywopped by the Argonauts. And looking at what he did, he contributed to that because he had 2 interceptions that he threw in this game. All right. 2 interceptions for the red mother, father, and blacks there, Ryan McCarthy. He also had 476 yards in the air, which is great. Congratulations. But you were 46 of 61 out of attempts, with 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. The running game, I'm speechless when it comes to the running game, Ryan. It is absolutely a joke. Let me look at it. Braylon Addison, 4 carries for 17 yards, averaging 4.2 yards per carry. Congratulations. Devontae Dedman, 2 carries for 4 yards, averaging 2 yards per carry. Then you have Drew Brown himself, the quarterback. He gave up 2 interceptions on the day. He had 3 carries for 3 yards, averaging 1 yard per carry. It gets worse than that. Dustin Crum, backup quarterback, comes in for 4 carries, has 1 total yard, 0.2 yards per carry. But hey, he had a touchdown. Oh, there's 4 carries, and for what he averaged, he had a mother, father, and touchdown. He did great with that. Now, receiving wise, it does get a little bit better. It was bleak on the running game, and that's probably what contributed towards their 20 plus, their 20-point deficit that they had. Khalil Pimpleton has 13 receptions for 123 yards. Braylon Addison adds 10 receptions for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns, along with Jalen Ackland has 7 receptions for 70 yards and 1 touchdown receiving as well. The defense did muster up 3 sacks on the day, but they didn't force any turnovers from the other side. And Lewis Ward was probably the main highlight as the kicker. He puts up 4 field goals out of 4 attempts, 100%, just like Liram on the other side. But the long for him was 42 yards. A lot of stats I just rattled off there. What are your total thoughts when looking back at this first game of the division semifinals from this past weekend?
There was a lot of scoring in this game.
Yeah,
I predicted. I said, I got 2 out of 2 right. My predictions. I said this was going to be a high scoring game. I was right. I said that we'll talk about the Rough Riders and Lions in a moment, but I said that the Rough Riders defense had to come through in that game. I was right in that one. So it's 2 for 2 for me. Go me. I didn't separate my shoulder, pat myself in the back. So just give me a heads up here. I didn't do any of that. But looking back at this game, I was listening to this game while I was doing yard work, and Ottawa actually surprisingly had all the momentum in the first quarter. Had all the momentum. They scored a touchdown on their first drive, forced a 2-and-out from Toronto, get another get a field goal, and they were starting to build momentum. Their defense forced a turnover. Not just forced a turnover, but forced a turnover in Argos territory. Yep. They had a chance to go up 17-3 by the end of the first quarter. Unfortunately for them, they didn't get the opportunity and went up kicking a field goal. It's 13-3, and figure, okay. And that's the thought I had was, okay, Toronto's going to do something big. And sure shooting, Chad Kelly finds Mackay Polk for a long touchdown pass. And that set the game in motion. Because Ottawa, it was back and forth. It was tennis. It was scoring tennis in the first half. However, what Toronto did was force the Redblacks to kick field goals. After that first touchdown, Ottawa was driving the field. Ottawa was doing their job. They were driving the field. They couldn't convert touchdowns. They couldn't convert points. They couldn't get points on the board with majors, with touchdowns. So Toronto's defense, to their credit, they were playing bend but don't break. They've been playing that way for just about the most of the second half of the season. On the flip side, Toronto, Chad Kelly was ridiculously efficient on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Only 2 incompletions, but he still throws for over 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, runs runs a touchdown in, which basically at that point that sealed the game. And Ottawa was just trying to play catch up. They didn't have a running game because they didn't have a true running back in their lineup in this game. Braylon Addison did most of the carrying, literally most of the carrying. They had to go one-dimensional because they didn't have a run game. They haven't had a run game all year long, and it killed them. It absolutely killed them. Now, give the defense credit. They stopped the run. They stopped Kadeem Carey, who I think finished 3rd in the league in rushing yards this year. Got over 1,000. Congratulations to him. But Ottawa's run defense has been good, but their pass defense was atrocious. It was an atrocity. And part of it was Darius Pickett not being back there to shore up the secondary. And his absence absolutely hurt the Ottawa Redblacks. Hurt him during the last month of the season after he went out for the year. This team will be back, but I think they're going to do. They actually relieved their defensive coordinator of his duties today, Baron Miles. So they'll be looking for a new defensive coordinator next year. Bob Dice did enough to save his job. They went to a playoff spot, got him to the playoffs, but their defense couldn't stop a nosebleed, especially Chad Kelly. On the flip side of the ball, Drew Brown, 61 passing attempts. That's the absence of a running game. That's when you know you have no run game, when you have to throw 61 times. He threw 3 touchdowns, but he also threw 2 touchdowns to the opposing team with 2 pick sixes, and that contributed to the blowout right there. They got a touchdown at the end just to kind of make things, just kind of give themselves all right, we did it, we tried. But this was Toronto from the second quarter on. It was Toronto's game. They scored 55 points from quarter 2 on. This was a high scoring game, but this was a blowout, and they're motivated. They want to get back to the Grey Cup. They want to prove that last year was a fluke. Last year they were 16-2. They finished 16-2 last year, and then got absolutely punched in the face in the Eastern Final against Montreal. Now they're going back to Montreal for a possible revenge game. This is the possible revenge game. They have to go over this hump if they want to go back to the Stanley Cup, Grey Cup. Yeah, I don't know if you caught the highlights, Drew. But I think the play that really turned it around in this game, it wasn't that long touchdown pass by Chad Kelly to Makai Polk. It was the fluky, not squib kick by Richie Leone that hit one of the upbacks with less than 10 seconds left in the first half. And it allowed Toronto to get points at the end of the half, go into the locker room knowing that they were going to get the ball first, and then it just steamrolled. It just created a snowball effect, and Ottawa couldn't stop Toronto from scoring. Ottawa couldn't stop. They couldn't do anything. All the momentum had been sapped after that play, and that was the game right there.
It was definitely wild. Did definitely catch the highlights, and looking back on it, you look at the moves that were made throughout the season, and I'm starting to wonder if letting go of Raquel Armstead is come back to haunt the Redblacks in this game, because they had no running game at all. They couldn't figure it out. I mean, they couldn't really figure it out consistently when he was there anyway, and they tried to make him the scapegoat by letting him go. Then you saw what we did the first game with the Roughriders. We'll talk more about them here in a little bit, but right here and now, would you say that one single move would be what cost them as far as their running attack goes?
Yeah, it did. It came back to bite them. And I understand the reasons why they let go of Raquel Armstead. I guess there was some alleged misgivings with him in terms of behavior off the field. I understand the reason, but somebody's going to pick him up. And that came back to bite them in the rear. and it showed. It showed from that point on in the season. They had to rely on the passing game. They didn't have a run game. Free agency is coming very, very quickly. I think it starts in January or February. So they got some decisions to make in terms of who they're going to try to pick up to pick up their running game. They had a chance to get a couple of guys at the end of last year during free agency last year. They could have gotten AJ Willett from Toronto. They could have signed him away from Toronto. They could have picked up William Stanback from Montreal. They didn't do either. And now you're seeing the results of an offense that's pass first. And yeah, it's a passing league, but you have to balance things out if you want to be successful. You got to give your quarterback a run game to help keep the defense humble. And when you're one-dimensional, the opposing defense knows what they're going to look for when you try to attack. And yeah, 2 interceptions that cost them at the end of the game, which were 2 pick sixes. One was a long pick six. The other one was shorter. But yeah, this Ottawa's got some things to think about in the offseason. Shoring up the run game is definitely on the priority list.
It's wild when you think about the not the Roughriders, but the Redblacks, and then a team in another division in the BC Lions mismanaging one offensive position, and it seems like mismanaging those positions potentially is what cost them a run in this year's Grey Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep.
It's very interesting to look back and think about that right here when we're in the moment, now that we're down to, the CFL version of the Final Four that we're about to start breaking down, for the remainder of the show that we'll see this weekend. It's definitely been pretty exciting to finally get to this point, because when you think about the weeks that we were covering some dumpster Pelican teams, between Total Football Talk, the original, and now our spinoff show here with Extra, right here and now, looking at CFL from the beginning in week 1, going through 21 weeks of it, the ups, the downs, and this team right here, the Redblacks, this was the one team I would say throughout the 6 that we had in the playoff run. Throughout the year, I would say if you were a fan of this team, it was kind of cardiac, up and down all year, but along with the BC Lions, very similar with how their season started off on more of a high, in my opinion, with the Lions. The Redblacks were kind of just up and down, up and down, up and down all year, and just could never find a groove.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked you that question, because I look at that mismanagement of the running back position as one of the true key things, because the games where they did have a really good running attack, it was led by their quarterback, if whichever one of them was in there. And consistently, Drew Brown was doing probably the best job out of all their selections that they had at quarterback, which is why he's QB1.
Yeah. Yeah. Masoli filled in as well as he could. You get that big win in Calgary when Drew Brown went out of the lineup, and unfortunately, with Drew Brown, he got rushed back in, and it showed. And then Masoli took over. But again, you have to have a running game to keep the other defense honest, because you wouldn't know what to prepare for. And yeah, Ottawa got, and we talked about 2 different. You talked about the BC Lions, and Ottawa had a pretty hot start too. Yeah, but again, it's with the injuries. When the injuries pile up and you become a one-dimensional team, opposing defense is going to look at you and go, "Okay, we know what to expect. We know what to expect." And we'll get in the way of passing lanes. We'll try to cut off the edge. We'll try to cut the receiver off when we can. And that showed in this game, especially in the second half, when Ottawa couldn't get things going early in the second half, and you had to play catch up. And when you try to play catch up, sometimes it just comes back to haunt you, and it did.
Well, they got a long off season now to think about what has happened and try to make some moves within their organization. We'll have to see what the Redblacks do. But I would say out of our 2 games this week, the comparison, this one was. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, especially towards the end. especially towards the end. The second and third quarter were the biggest turnarounds. And, we're not giving enough flowers to the Toronto Argonauts either. They fell behind early, fell behind by double digits, came back, and Chad Kelly just kept things rolling. He was 18 of 20 for 358 yards. He was averaging 17.9 yards per reception, which is just an incredible statistic. And a couple of those were long pass plays. The 70-yard touchdown pass to Mackay Polk was the one that just kind of got them back in the game. But we got to give credit where credit's due to the Toronto, to Chad Kelly, to Mackay Polk, who has been his number one target ever since he came back from his 9-game suspension to start the year. Mackay Polk, 4 receptions, 158 yards. My goodness. Crazy statistics. But that's how they got back in the game. It was Chad Kelly. It was Chad Kelly getting them back in the game. And we got to give credit where credit's due. Yes, he's had a lot of ups and downs this season with the suspension, coming back, and going to opposing cities, and them giving junk because of what he did off the field, and to have that kind of performance. And now they're 1 game away from going back to the Grey Cup where they were 2 years ago. You gotta give credit where credit's due. Hate the guy all you want, but he's gonna show you why he's arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the CFL right now.
Absolutely. And you're 1 game away from the Grey Cup, like you said. We'll break it down here in a little bit as to who we think is going to actually go or who will take the And I forgot to click a certain button, but this past game for our first game in the opening drive was our first of 2 for Saturday games. But now that we covered that, we're going to move on to something else. That is, we got to acknowledge some comments we got from the fans right now out here in the chat. Got to give a shout out to our guy, Sick Diggy, all the way over from Norway. That's what makes this show international, with him saying it's about to get extra wild and extra cheeky with @Ryan McCarthy, he said.
I don't do fresh press hams for free, Sick Diggy. I don't know what you're talking about. They're cheeky, but I know this. I'm just kidding. I know this slang about cheeky. I know what that's about. I know what you're trying to be. I'm a wise Alec. What can I say?
Yeah, you got Sick over there with the wiseness, dropping the $5 stuff out here in these streams. Snowman's out here saying Total Football Talk XTRA, baby.
Hey,
we forgot about the coffee.
I got mine. Where's yours?
Coffee? Yeah, it's you don't want me to drink coffee right now while I'm doing podcasts. And I'll get way too hyped. Can't be doing that right now. Keep the caffeine till before and afterwards, and I'll start slinging them back like it's water, and then we get a problem. Can't go back to those times.
I also have water just in case people get concerned. I'm keeping hydrated.
I love these little units right here. You got to have them, keep your water cold and ready to rock and roll. But Mickey Delaney's also in the house. Says, what up, Ryan and Drew?
What's up, Mickey? Thanks for joining us, man.
Awesome. Absolutely. Thank you, Mick. And as always, whether you're watching this on No Credentials Required's YouTube channel, on COMI Media's YouTube channel, or on SIRTOBA Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome, subscribe now and never miss out on new mother, father, and content. But with that being said, it's now time we take it to the game of the week. The game of the week that we have, absolutely, is between 2 teams. One of them being the one that I have dubbed as my favorite, so I guess it is a Homer celebration right here, as I'm talking about the Saskatchewan Roughriders hosting the BC Lions this past Saturday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The Roughriders win this game 28-19 at home. Definitely was a nice celebration from their fans. That included myself. When you look at this game right in its context, you got Trevor Harris, who was 26-33 for 279 yards and a touchdown. But then we go to the running game. AJ Alouette leads the way, as he has been the number 1 back throughout the majority of this season. when he's been healthy, of course. 14 carries for 70 yards and 2 total rushing touchdowns on the day. He also added 2 receptions for 15 yards. Reichwell Armstead, the one we just discussed, who was part of the Ottawa Redblacks, didn't put up a whole lot of stats, but he has definitely helped out when Alouette's been down this year and deserved to get his touches. He had 5 carries for 24 yards, also added 1 reception for 10 yards, did just enough to help out this rushing and receiving attack. Harris himself had 1 carry for 5 yards on the day, and Shea Patterson, backup quarterback, had 2 carries for 3 yards. Samuel Emilis leads the way in receptions, 9 receptions for 106 yards, averaging 11.8 yards per reception. Keyshawn Johnson, not the Hall of Famer, not even spelled the same, but plays CFL football, 7 receptions.
Get him damn ball.
7 receptions for 66 yards on the day. But the one who scored the touchdown was Jarrett Stearns, 2 receptions for 38 yards, caught the lone passing touchdown from Trevor Harris. Besides Trevor Harris and the running game, and then along with the kicking game, with Brett Lowther having 2 of 2 on field goals with a long of 34, contributed 8 points, did just enough because their defense was able to contain the Lions' offense as they had 3 interceptions on the day. Roland Milligan had 4 tackles with 1 of those interceptions. Marcus Sales had 4 tackles with another one of those interceptions. And Nelson Lacombo had 2 tackles with the 3rd interception as well. So when you look at the contributions in all 3 phases of the Roughriders, they had just enough help in all areas to get this done. Now, we've been discussing this Lions team throughout the majority of this season, right? And they had the ups and downs. Vernon Adams Jr. will talk about the first half of the season. They're playing so well, we had him as a top MVP candidate for the CFL. Then he goes down. They set him down. They bring in Nathan Rourke. Nathan Rourke plays the rest of the season for the majority of the time, and they squeak by and barely get into the playoffs. And now we're talking about this team in the playoffs who thrust Vernon Adams Jr. back in there after some time and not having real chemistry with the team in a while. Playing in this game, he had 20 completions out of 33 passing attempts, 317 passing yards, and 2 passing touchdowns. But the big stat line for him was 3 interceptions as he was not in sync with his receivers completely on the day. William Stanback also didn't provide a healthy running attack that he has also helped in these big wins that they've had this year. And he didn't help this week when he had 7 carries for 27 yards, along with Vernon Adams Jr.'s 3 carries for 12 yards on the day as well. Javon Cotty's 3 receptions for 82 yards was the highlight as receivers go, and he also had a receiving touchdown, along with Justin McInnes having 5 receptions for 66 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. The defense didn't put up but only 1 sack on the day by Matthew Betts. And we also have no interceptions that they were able to haul in. Their kicker, Sean White, was their highlight on special teams, 2 of 2 on the day for 36 yards. But no kick return touchdowns or punt return touchdowns. No big noise was made on that side of the ball. Looking at this for what it was, would you say this is more of a domination of the Roughriders defense opposed to the Lions offense, or was it the Roughriders offense that destroyed the Lions defense?
No, it was definitely the Saskatchewan Roughriders defense just absolutely dominating the BC Lions offense. And it looked kind of shaky early because the first touchdown of the game was scored by the BC Lions. It was the long touchdown pass from Adams to Javon Catoy. And here's the big what's funny is that Sean White, who has been one of the most reliable kickers in the CFL this year, doinked the extra point, and a little later on he doinked a field goal. So it's double doink of the day, which kind of told the story about how the BC Lions were this day. But I said a couple things last week. I said that the Roughriders had to take away the run game. The defense to take away the run game, and they did just that. William Stanback only had 7 carries for 27 yards. Adams had the 12 yards on a couple couple of scrambles, and David Mackey had the fullback who was in for short yardage situations, only 2 yards, but that's okay. I mean, he's just there for short yardage situations. So when you take away the passing, you want to go to the running game, like they've been doing all year. You gotta put the emphasis on the passing game, and they had to force Vernon Adams to throw a lot this game. 33 passing attempts. He had 2 touchdowns, but great. He had 3 interceptions, and you didn't know with Vernon Adams. Interestingly enough, you don't know which version of him you're going to get. You're going to get either the brilliant quarterback who, yeah, he's a gunslinger. He's going to throw the ball a lot, but when he makes those throws, some of them are spectacular, rather spectacular. He makes great plays and he throws the long ball when he needs to. But man, when you really put the emphasis on him to try to win you the game, and he throws those 3 interceptions, man, it's a tough road to hoe. And the Roughriders defense, Corey Mace, congratulations to him. His first playoff game, his first home playoff game in Regina, gets the win in his first coaching season as head coach of the Roughriders. On the offensive side of the ball, the offense did just enough. And one of the craziest stats of the day I'm looking at, time of possession, they almost 35 minutes of possession. On second down, they were 16 of 24 on second down. That's 61.5% percentage. That's really efficient. And Trevor Harris, he is a Grey Cup winner, but he's a backup quarterback in Toronto. No, not Toronto. It was Ottawa back in 2016 when they won the Grey Cup against the Calgary Stampeders. But they gave him a lot of money to come to Saskatchewan and win. Last year, not a great year. Was spent most of the year on the bench with an injury. This year he gets hurt again, has to sit out for a bit. But ever since he's come back, he's been spectacular, and he was spectacular in this game too. 26-33, 279 yards, only 1 touchdown. But that's okay because guess what? He had, Drew, a running game to help him out, take the pressure off him. And you had the two-headed attack between AJ Willett, had 70 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a 30-yard touchdown that basically sealed the game. 30-yard rushing touchdown basically sealed the game scoring-wise for the Roughriders, and Raquel Armstead contributed with 24 yards on the ground. So you got Willett and you got Armstead, who we mentioned was released by Ottawa due to again, we don't really know what the circumstances were, but I guess it was bad behavior off the field. Comes into Saskatchewan, model citizen, doing his thing, contributing where he can. And the receivers making some big catches. Samuel Emelis, 9 interceptions, 10 targets, 106 yards. Jared Stearns with a touchdown. But the story of the game was definitely the Saskatchewan Riders defense forcing 3 interceptions, one of them by Roland Milligan, who is the West nominee for most outstanding defensive player. Marcus Sales got the first interception. Nelson Lacombo got that interception in their own territory to take it away from the BC Lions. So BC's got a lot of decisions to make, and at the end of the game, interestingly enough, Vernon Adams Jr. I wasn't sure if it's the end of the game, after the game was over, or during locker room cleanout. But he said, but interesting enough, he said, "You may have seen my last game as a BC Lion." So he might be saying that he might be gone after this year. He might be a free agent, might be traded, might be released. We don't really know. But
as he should be. He deserves a better opportunity.
He does.
Yeah.
And there's at least 2 teams that could use his services next year. And they're both in the province of Alberta. So let's see what happens for agency. Let's see what kind of deals one of these teams can make for a guy like Vernon Adams, who, yeah, he's high risk, but he's also high reward. Not so much in this game, but otherwise he could be a difference maker with his arm and with his scrambling ability. So, good luck to him in the future. But this data belonged to the Roughriders. I'm gonna recite from a certain rapper who has departed from us, the Roughriders anthem. I'm only going to say a couple things because I don't want to get thrown off of YouTube or get you demonetized. But I'll say this. So, stop, drop, shut them down, open up shop. Oh no, that's how Rough Riders roll. Arr, arr, arr.
As they hand over the to the BC Lions. This was absolutely wild when it comes to.
You guys want to hear a fucking story?
You gotta take it back to that. You gotta take it back to the fact that, you know, we just talked about it in the first game, how the mismanagement of the running back position potentially was the big cause of error for the Redblacks and why they didn't advance to the division finals, you know, because they didn't set themselves up for it during the season, right? We look at this now with the quarterback position with the BC Lions, same thing. You know, the Redblacks and the Lions mismanaged, you know, an offensive position. This just happened to be the quarterback position because had Vernon Adams Jr. got back into the fold much sooner and was treated with a little bit more respect, is how it seems from my opinion, and basically with what you were saying as well, he wouldn't be up there talking about the fact this was potentially his last game as a BC Lion.
Yeah.
And he said it definitively. Like, although he was saying the right words, behind it in the context, in the tone, it's his last game. And he deserves a better opportunity to show who he is, because the first half of the season, you and I were sitting here talking about the fact that this guy is a MVP candidate. Cole was too when we had on the original show. So, you know, Vernon Adams Jr. was the talk of our show for the first 2 months of the season. And now we fast forward, you know, the season's about 6 months long, you know, with the playoffs included, looking at it for what it is, a lot changed in the past few months. So he deservingly so needs to be thinking about going elsewhere because he deserves better opportunities.
Indeed.
And Six says, rest in peace, DMX.
Yeah, I want, man, when I depart this earth, I want the same hearse that DMX had. You remember that funeral?
Mm-hmm.
The big monster truck carrying his coffin.
Yeah, he was something else, man. But he was special. I mean, he had to have the special funeral, and that was what it was. But you know, it also probably takes a good amount of money to have something like that happen.
That's
so
true.
Keep on working out there, keep on elevating yourselves out there in these streets, y'all, and you can have a type of funeral like DMX if you continue to do what you do out here in these streets.
Oh, my brother, testify!
But when it comes to football, you definitely serve that up great when it comes to that. And if anybody out there doesn't agree with Mr. McCarthy,
you should know your role and shut your mouth.
Along with
acknowledge me,
as we acknowledge DMX and we acknowledge people out there who are not agreeing. As always, subscribe now and never miss out on new content, whether you're watching on COMI Media, SIRTOBA Media, or no credentials required currently for your housing places, or on X, Mr. McCarthy's channel. So you can see it there as well. We got some Twitch things going. We got some, you know, LinkedIn things going for you to see it out here as well. But right now, those are the main comments coming in from those places.
You can't handle the truth.
And there it is. If not, get on a plane.
Guess what? Shut up. You'll be on a fucking plane.
Oh, no! Where's that from? I know it's pre-WWE days pre-now WWE days, but
I don't know if it's still available on
Ring
YouTube
of Honor or Dub.
It was those days when the Young Bucks in BTE, they had to be in the Elite channel or whatnot before AEW was constructed. So I mean, I've been a fan. You know how it is. I mean, with wrestling out there, and I found these different videos. I mean, I was just kind of like how people binge watch Netflix shows. I found the YouTube channel just randomly one day. Like this is like a couple of years ago. This is like 2022. And I was binge watching some of the old stuff, and I was seeing these different things, and I just was clipping them out. And I have the the snakes on the plane, and also the story, and then I have this.
Oh, yeah, you're fucking scared. Yeah, you're fucking scared.
So, oh yeah, but you can't sit around and watch too much and eat too much candy, or you will.
Diabetes. Diabetes.
There it is. Have a little fun out here on the shenanigans for today. But Sick Diggy says a monster truck at Ryan McCarthy. How about the Bigfoot monster truck?
Bigfoot was the OG of the monster trucks. He was a Bigfoot. I remember the Bigfoot cartoon. God, I'm old. I remember that cartoon. Speaking of monster trucks, because we're getting off the rails here, which is cool. When I go
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
when I go north, it's okay, thank you. When I go to North Carolina every couple summers, I'm away to the Outer Banks, down that main highway. I think it's 158. I think it is going towards the Outer Banks. The Gravedigger Museum is there.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've seen it.
I haven't been there, but next time I go to the Outer Banks, I want to stop there. I want to stop there on the way to the house we got.
It's been because with where you're at, and in your area with us being on the East Coast, like it's about a similar distance as far as driving to OBX. I'd rather drive the little bit of extra time, which isn't like maybe an extra hour to go there than go to Virginia Beach, just because it's nicer. But I'm thinking about maybe doing that next year because checking something else out like that Monster Truck Museum would be pretty cool to go check out while you're down there. So definitely good call on that one. But yeah, Sick, that was big for that. And yes, if you don't go check out the museum when you're down there, then this is you.
You guys want to hear a fucking story?
Along with
Yeah, you're fucking scared. Yeah, you're fucking scared.
and if not, take yourself and get on a plane.
Guess what? Shut up. You'll be on a fucking plane.
I had to find one more reason to click those buttons one more time, because if not, I'd just be taking the.
You may claim to be the best in the world, but I'm better than you. And you know it.
And that is going to be another monster truck stepping up to that monster truck someday, saying that it is better than you as it evolves into the future, kind of like MJF and CM Punk in that moment in AEW. But AEW 95% sucks, so we'll just talk about that a different day, because that's just how I feel about that. This
is what happens when we have only 2 games during the week, folks.
Yes, we're finding filler time. But when it comes to that, I will say that I want to acknowledge one thing real quick, because you are a fellow wrestling fan, as we've slightly gone off the rails here. But AEW, I was at the very first ever Dynamite show. When they filmed it, when Cody was there, and it was 2019. This was before the pandemic, because it was in Washington, D.C. at Capital One Arena. And I drove to Springfield, hopped on the train, on the subway, go there, get off right there within a half a mile of the arena, walk there. Pretty fun experience. Met up with some friends that were up there. They didn't live near me, but they came from a different direction, got up on the internet doing podcasting and stuff, and met up with them and a couple other people there too. And it was fun, man. It was a good experience. And I had a lot of high hopes for that brand. And then all of a sudden, mismanagement just goes to show like how much things can take a nosedive. And you have some stars over there, but you're trying to go up against the big time, and WWE has retaken over, as far as there was a divide for a while. But now we've got what we've got between the big time and AEW. And I want to announce something. I don't think I told you this.
Ooh.
Lance in Hawaii signed with WWE yesterday.
Oh, we're getting another Bloodline member soon.
Yes. And you know how, You know how I know him? Because I met up with him in Philadelphia at the old ECW arena in this past December, and all about that that experience. I'm just happy for my guy, man. And he's subscribed to this channel. I don't know if he's watching this right now, but we're friends on Facebook and Instagram. And I sent him a message last night, and also shared a post earlier while we're on a wrestling subject to fill a little bit of time. But we're talking about Lance. Big shout to him. And just to make sure I do it without a comment on the screen, I just want to say again, shout to Lance Anoa'i for getting signed by WWE. Awesome dude, definitely deserves it. 14 years on the independent scene and has been absolutely crushing it. Has been working on getting himself in better shape, and definitely the work paid off. You see with Jacob Fatu and the rest of the Bloodline family members with coming in from the independents. Haku's kids with the Tongans. They've definitely been building that story up to where I think we're going to see something pretty special Survivor Series. I don't know if it's going to be Zilla or Fatu the debut, since he is signed with WWE before. That's Umaga's son. And now you have Samu's son, who is another third-generation wrestler, that being Lance Anoa'i, will be now a part of WWE. To me, it has to be part of this Bloodline story. It can't be just going to NXT. I can see Zilla going to NXT, but the experience that Lance has, 14 years, you got to take him on up to the main roster. And I'm going to clip part of that out and send it to him, tag him in it or something, because he deserves it, man. He deserves the recognition. But again, shout out to you there, Big Oos, for making it to the big time. But make sure I have to tune in tonight, because I don't think he's going to debut this fast. I don't think it'll be on WWE this fast. But for him to be there, it's got to be something that involves Survivor Series, I think. So within the next few weeks, one way or another. Hopefully it's under his real name. I think that would be pretty cool, kind of like with Jacob Fatu. But we shall see. And now you guys have seen how much of fans we are outside of the game of football. We like NFL, we like CFL, baseball, now professional wrestling. See multiple sides of the sports fan and the sports analyst, okay? I should bring back a wrestling show, but my man Corey, he has that show on now Saturdays, 4 p.m. Eastern time on SIRTOBA Media. You can check out The Grind. The first 3 episodes are available, and the 4th will be available tomorrow. With that being said, we now have to take this into our next segment, which is the Grand Champ of the Week.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989 on 2 on 2 on 2. Ready? Quick.
Total Football Talk Extra. Where my dogs at?
I know where one is. Right over there. That's Mr. McCarthy. We got to talk
There's
about
one right there, Mr. Drew Willingham.
There it is. We got to talk about who our picks for the dog of the week is. First of all, I will give the floor to him.
Let's take it back to the early game on Saturday. The Toronto Argonauts and the Ottawa Redblacks. Toronto fell behind early, but they came back, and it was on the strength of their quarterback. I want to give love and appreciation to like special teams and the O-line, but this game was a Chad Kelly game, and it showed. It only 2 incompletions, had 358 yards, 4 touchdowns, ran for another. This guy single-handedly kept the Toronto Argonauts in the game. This was despite an early 2-and-out. This was despite giving up, fumbling the ball, getting absolutely smacked by Lorenzo Malden to give up that fumble in their territory, which again, Toronto only gave up 3 in that possession. They could have fallen behind by 2 touchdowns very, very early. But Chad Kelly got back up off the mat through a long touchdown pass to Makai Polk and just kept it rolling from there and contributed and helped his team to one game away from a possible return back to the Grey Cup. And His journey started in the 2023 Grey Cup or 2022 Grey Cup against Winnipeg. We had to come in for McLeod Bethel Thompson after he went out of the game, led him on a touchdown drive. That's where his story started. His story started. Led them to 16 wins last year. Came up short, and then the off-field matters came to light, which was unfortunate for him. But he served his sentence, served his time, came back, led Toronto into the playoffs, and now he's one game away from returning to the Grey Cup against a very tough Montreal team. But this week, the Saturday game had 358 yards, ran for another 29, contributed for 5 total touchdowns. And Chad Kelly, he's my dog of the week.
Nice. Yeah, good choice over there for the Argos. Sets me up for my choice for dog of the week. And that's going to be the entire offense of the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the entire defense of the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the kicker for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So basically the entire Saskatchewan Roughriders team. Yes, I am giving them the dog of the week pick. And the reason why is because another team that started off with a pretty decent start to the season, it wasn't looking good for the Saskatchewan Roughriders for a little bit. It was looking a little bleak. It was looking like a potential, and a potential way for them to not even qualify. That was the word I was looking for. Sorry, it's been a long week. They might not have even qualified for the playoffs until the past couple of weeks had they not turned it around. Okay. They're having injuries within their running backs, Olette, as well as Reichwell Armstead. They're trying to get things going consistently within the run game. They also were having, a little bit of issues within healthiness, was staying healthy on defense, and they were reverting backwards. Not quite as bad as the BC Lions and the Ottawa Redblacks did towards the end of their years, but right here and now for the season of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, for the way that it went, for some inconsistencies, for them to finally figure it out within the last few weeks of the season, finally get to that point where they needed to advance to the division finals, for them to get to the Final Four of the CFL. I am happy. I'm happy to see it, and I hope they can keep it up within this next match that they have in the finals, which we will break down here shortly. But because you never know, when it comes to, a game of football in 4 quarters and 3 downs, especially here for the CFL, you don't know how things are going to pan out 100% sometimes. It can go either way, especially with the match they have this week. I got to give it to them now. That is, for all 3 phases of the game they played, especially defense, very well. My pick goes to the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Homer pick, but solid pick.
100% Homer pick. 100%. 100%. But I'll admit it. I can admit when I'm doing something intentional, or if I'm wrong, I have no problems. No shame in there. But like I said, I don't. You never know if I'm going to be able to say that they're a dog of the week next week, or a particular player from that team is a dog of the week, because we got to break down the 2-minute drill here shortly and talk about that game that they're going to be a part of. It's a pretty big one. It's going to be a little bit tougher, in my opinion, than the Lions game. But before we go to our next pick, which is the Snowflake of the week, Sick wants to add, don't forget about Haku's youngest son being signed to WWE under the name Talatonga. So all 3 Tongans are in WWE. So I predicted this a while back, and this was several months ago. I got to go find the clip. I got to remember which In or Out Sports debate it was. But we debated this, and I said Lance was going to join Roman's team. I said it then. And I even think I sent a clip of it to Lance. I didn't clip it out and put it as a reel, but you can go back and see the episode. I'm going to have to do some digging on that this weekend and find it, because I think I said it, and some people are like, oh, you're crazy. Lance is not going there. Or whatever. No, I'm like, no, like he's going to go there, and he's going to be on Roman's team, because if now with you saying that, if Talatonga's coming, of course, that's going to be a part of Solo's team. It's going to be a third member there. And then you got to add more. So Zillafatu and Lance could be joining with Roman, because I feel like Sammy's going to turn. There's so many things I need to get on a wrestling show and talk about this fast. I got so much to say. But right here and now, definitely a good thing to throw out there, Sick. I had to add a little bit more flavor to what you were posting out there in the comments. Speaking of flavor, we now have to add it to going from the Grand Champ to the Snowflake of the Week. We'll see you on the other side of this transition.
Total Football Talk Extra.
Hey, get your jackets out. It's time to talk about the Snowflake of the Week. All the snowflakes out there, what they're doing. There was a week of snowflakes this week.
Snowflakes be snowflaking.
Outside of football and in different areas that I'm not even going to break down because it has nothing to do with this show. I know I went that route with wrestling, but I will not go that route with the P word. Okay. All right. And there's an O after that. That's as much as I'm going to throw out there with that. But when it comes to this, besides those snowflakes, when it comes to other ones within the game of football and the CFL especially, who's your choice for the snowflake of the week there, Mr. McCarthy?
My choice for the snowflake of the week. There's two snowflakes of the week. The Ottawa Redblacks pass defense. The Ottawa Redblacks rushing offense. You guys disappeared faster than Houdini, faster than David Copperfield, faster than that guy who did that model. I can't remember his name. Magician. I can't remember his name, but he's David Blaine. That's right. you disappeared. Actually, in fact, the running offense didn't show up at all. The pass defense did their job for the first three series of the Toronto Argonauts with a 3-and-out, a field goal, and a fumble, which was not caused by the secondary, but they did their job. And then all of a sudden, you vanished. You vanished to the tune of 358 yards and 4 touchdowns. You got burned from quarters 2 onward through the end of the game. Burnt to crisp. And unfortunately, it cost your defensive coordinator, Baron Miles, his job. I don't know what happened. I don't think anybody could really explain. If you're a diehard Ottawa Redblacks fan, I'm pretty sure you're happy that your team got to the playoffs for the first time in, I think it's 6 years. You made some improvements. You made some jumps, but unfortunately, the defense, especially the secondary, disappeared at the worst time possible, at the worst possible moment in the most important game of the year. And it was the Eastern semifinal. And now you've gone your separate ways, back to your respective homes. You'll be watching the Grey Cup from the couch. And you're my snowflake of the week.
Good picks. So you're going with the Redblack side.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to pick another losing team and go with that side. And that's going to be with the BC Lions. I'm going to go, and you know what? Since you have 2 snowflakes, I'm going to give 2 snowflakes as well there, Mr. McCarthy. I'm going to start off with head coach and co-general manager Rick Campbell. With how you mismanaged this team's quarterback position this year, that's why I've got you as one of my 2 snowflakes. Had you done a better job with that and integrating Vernon Adams Jr. a little bit sooner and getting the chemistry back, he wouldn't be throwing 3 interceptions in a game. And I'm not even going to completely blame him for this game because there were multiple, and I'm not talking about Rick Campbell, I'm not going to completely blame Vernon Adams Jr. or even select him as my second snowflake of the week because of that, because he doesn't have a choice of how he gets put into the game. So with that, I'm going to go with the head coach and co-general manager and Rick Campbell, but I'm also going to go with the entire running attack for the BC Lions. And you can also include the offensive line in there too, because they're the ones that protect for the running game and create the holes. So I guess this is more directed towards the offensive line, but at the same time, I got to include the running backs in there because the running backs in this game, William Stanback and David Mackey, between the two, 8 carries for 29 yards. When you have Vernon Adams Jr.'s 3 carries for 12, I mean, that's 41 yards on 11 attempts. That's terrible. And a lot of that is started by how the offensive line protects for the passing attack along with the rushing attack. And when you look at the fact that Vernon Adams Jr. had 317 yards passing, and he did that on only 33 attempts, it's not like he threw the ball 61 times like Drew Brown. He had a healthy amount of attempts, in my opinion. 30 to 35, in my opinion, is a pretty healthy amount of attempts in a full football game. When you go above that, it's pretty much exposing yourself as being a very pass-heavy team and having no running attack. So considering the fact that you were able to still have that amount of yardage and that amount of attempts, you set up your running backs to be able to do something on that day. And William Stanback has been pretty consistent throughout the season in a running attack when they've won, right? When they've lost, of course, you could look at it on the other hand. But when the games that they've won, they've had a good rushing attack. The Roughriders defense did a really good job at containing them. But based on how they played to start the year, and it's not like they had significant injuries to the offensive line, or at least if I'm incorrect, you can let me know there, Ryan, but I don't believe that they did, looking back on it. I mean, I saw you turn the mic on. What do you think? Do they have substantial injuries in the offensive line, or am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Okay, so with that, they should be able to block. And the Roughriders defense has been pretty solid this year. But when you look at it for what it is, they look like the men went to boys pretty much in very, very close terms as far as how their demeanor was. You were men facing young children, that being the Roughriders facing young children on the offensive line, because they just seemed like they could not keep up with the attack of the Roughriders defense, which affected the running backs very, very severely in this game. And had Rick Campbell done a better job of preparing for that, and as well as managing the quarterback position throughout the season, you would have had Vernon Adams Jr. on a better page. You take 2 of those interceptions away, and he only has even just 1, they win this game. Lions could have won this game had it not been for the turnovers. But because of the chemistry, because of the pressure that was brought on to the offensive line by the Roughriders who couldn't handle it, that's why they lost this game. And for that, I have to give them, Rick Campbell and the offensive line primarily, the snowflakes of the week, in my opinion.
Yeah, solid pick for Snowflake of the Week. Rick Campbell mismanaged his roster, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and we see their running attack did not exist in this game because Saskatchewan took it away. Essentially took it away and put the onus on Vernon Adams Jr., which yours truly predicted last week would happen. 3 interceptions.
With Ryan, since you acknowledged, since you predicted it, I'll give you the acknowledgement.
Acknowledge me.
Because you called it, and it happened. So when it comes to that, that's our picks for Dog of the Week and Snowflake of the Week. Let's go ahead and take it into the 2-minute drill and look forward to the 2 games this Saturday afternoon.
Total Football Talk Extra.
And now it's time for the 2-minute drill. We have 2 games to look at between the East Division Finals Saturday afternoon, 3:00 p.m. Eastern Time, and the West Division Finals Saturday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, between the East and West Division Finals is down to 2 games. It's down to 4 teams that made it to this point. We have the Toronto Argonauts traveling to Montreal to take on the Alouettes in the East Division Finals. And we have the Saskatchewan Roughriders traveling to Winnipeg to take on the Blue Bombers. Looking between these 2 games and these 4 teams, especially when we look at this first game right here between the Argos and the Alouettes, who do you think wins this game and why?
Man, I was looking at the stats while you were rolling with the Snowflake and the dog, your dogs of the week and your Snowflake of the week. This is going to come down to what these 2 teams do on the offensive side of the ball. Montreal's run defense is not very good, although they've picked it up lately. They allowed the 3rd most yards rushing this year But on the flip side, Toronto's offense allowed the most yardage, the most passing 30-yard plus plays this year with 36. Guess who led the league in 30-plus yard completions this year?
Who's that?
The Montreal Alouettes.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. So this is going to come down to what the defenses can take away. I looked at the last time these two teams met. They met back in September. Towards the end of September, Toronto took this game 37-31. Granted, here Liram Hairolahu had 7 of 7 on field goals. But Toronto had almost 500 yards on offense between both sides of the ball. And that was that. After that, Montreal cleaned up their defense. And this is going to be one of those games where you just got to figure out what each team's going to do. And if Montreal, and who doesn't really have much of a running attack at all, in terms of rushing yards, they were near last this season. Toronto was second. But it's going to depend, and you have the home crowd with you too. This is going to be a close game. It's going to be a close game. And if Montreal can somehow take away the rushing offense of Toronto, we saw that last week with Ottawa. They've got some game tape to go by and with how to take the run game away from from Toronto. If they can do that, they can force the issue on Chad Kelly to throw more attempts, make some more passing attempts like they did in last year's final when he threw, I think, 4 interceptions in that game and 2 were pick sixes.
Mm-hmm.
They can duplicate the same thing he did last year in the East final, take away the run, force the issue on Chad Kelly, make him throw turnovers. Montreal wins this game. And all Montreal has to do is just be very efficient in their passing game, and they can be. On the flip side, if Toronto can somehow, and they've played better defense over the last 2 months, no question about it. And if Chad Kelly can get going, and they can win the time of possession war with the run game, open up the run game, help Chad Kelly be efficient, Toronto wins this game. This is going to be a very close game. It's going to be a very fun game. Both games are going to be absolute bangers to watch. But I think Montreal just has something a little bit more special on defense, especially in the secondary. It's got some special flair in the secondary. I think it's going to come down to the last possession, and I think Montreal forces a turnover at the end, and they win this game very, very close. They'll return to the Grey Cup. I think it'll be a 1-score victory for Montreal. So I got Montreal in this game.
I like what you're saying, and it definitely very well can come into fruition. However, got a feeling there's going to be an upset in this game because you got to look at the fact that the Alouettes lost 3 out of their last 4 regular season games, right? And the Argos won 3 out of their last 4 regular season games. They're on a hot stretch. Chad Kelly finally started getting things going, and it's like you said, but I'm going to change up the wording a little bit. He wants to piss off the league, all right? Mm-hmm. And basically what he's doing. And he's going out there, he's slinging the rock, he's making moves, he's even doing it on the ground as well. And he's willing to run and extend plays with his legs. Not saying on the other side that we're not getting that type of production out the Alouettes, because I mean you got to look at the production they've done all season. But yes, it's we could probably scratch off that last game of the season against the Blue Bombers as that would be a really good matchup in the Grey Cup finals. But one of these two teams between the Blue Bombers and the Alouettes is not going to make the finals. And I really want to be the Blue Bombers, but at the same time, I got a feeling it's going to be the Alouettes. It's one of those teams that doesn't make it. And it's going to come down to the end, like you said. I just got a feeling there's going to be just enough time on the clock. There might not. It might be a mistake on the end of Montreal to give Chad Kelly just enough time. And he drives down the field just enough to set them up to score either a game-ending field goal or to Not like the Jaden Daniels Hail Mary that I was attending the previous week in the NFL in that way. But I got a feeling that the Argos are going to do something special in this because, they had a rough start to the season, very similar to the Blue Bombers, and they're trying to figure things out. Blue Bombers think had a little bit more of a rougher start to the season, but it wasn't all biscuits and gravy for the Argos. And once Chad Kelly gets integrated back into the team after, doing his time, like you said, shackled up and everything is what it made it sound like when you were saying it. But when he was doing his time, he comes out and he proves why, I guess he was worth the prima donna drama in some aspects, and he's doing his job. So with that being said, I kind of feel like I want to ride the wave of this one. And it's time for us to, we have a lot of agreements. We've had a lot of agreements in several weeks of this show and a lot of games. It's time that we show a little bit of competitiveness here. And you pick one team, I pick the other. And I'm going with the Argos as my pick this week.
I will say in defense of Montreal, they won this division with a month to go in the season. So in their game against Ottawa, they played most of their reserves. In the game against BC, Cody Fajardo played the first half. Also, the game against Winnipeg, he played in the first half. So he's been saving his, so to speak, his best for East Final. Montreal, all the injuries that they had, they're healthy. So it could come down to how the crowd can get into it in Montreal. They get rough and rowdy in Montreal, and I think that could be the X factor is the crowd at Percival Molson Stadium. That's just me, though.
Plus, to be honest, if the Roughriders can get past this next game we're about to talk about, I'd much rather them face the Argos than the Alouettes anyway. So that's why, I would say it is slightly a homer pick. But at the same time, I'm just going to ride the wave a little bit because we can't agree on everything. With that being said, right here and now, I've got the Argos. You got the Alouettes. We'll see how things go. Let's take it to the next game.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
Here with the next game, like we said, we got 2 games this Saturday to discuss. That was the East Division Finals. We now have to take a look at the West Division Finals, which will be at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The East Divisions will be decided by that point. So basically, the winner of this game will face the winner of the other game for the Grey Cup in the following week. You've got the Saskatchewan Roughriders traveling to Winnipeg to take on the Blue Bombers. Ryan, do you think the Blue Bombers win this game since you've got the Alouettes winning and have a rematch of the Grey Cup from last season?
This is another tough one to pick. And I've got my reasons, and there's plenty to think of. There's plenty of reasons why. These are the 2 best defenses in the Canadian Football League. And this is going to be a chess match between Corey Mace and O'Shea. Can't remember his first name. Mike O'Shea. Yeah, this is going to be a chess match between Corey Mace and Mike O'Shea.
I was thinking of O'Shea from Little Giants. The O'Shea brothers battle it out. Got the daughter out there. I'm gonna shut up.
All right. Winnipeg won 2 out of 3 games in this. 2 out of 3 games in this series this year. They won the Labor Day game, and they won the Banjo Bowl the next week. Both very close matchups. The first time these 2 teams played each other was when the Roughriders were having an identity crisis in the beginning of the season. Yes. When they started 0-4, got their first win against Ottawa, had 2-game winning streak, and then faced Saskatchewan in Saskatchewan and got beat by 10 in a very blasé match, but Saskatchewan had the advantage there. The last 2 times have been a little bit more high scoring. That being said, we've got a team in Saskatchewan who is looking to prove themselves. I got a veteran quarterback, a very young backfield, young, hungry guys and a receiver, and plenty of experience and youth on the back end on the defensive side. Same thing on the flip side of the ball. Zach Collaros has won 2 Grey Cups with this team, has led this team to 4 consecutive Grey Cups. They have a running attack with Brady Oliveira, who is the most outstanding player nominee in the West. Good receivers, good up front, in their front in their offensive line. They don't give up a lot of sacks, and Zach Collaros can improvise defensively. Again, even without some of the big stars like Justin Jeffcoat, who left the team after last year, Adam Bighill, who was out for the season. They can still create problems for the defense. The one advantage that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have, though, the home crowd. Their 13th man at the toolbox, known as Princess Auto Stadium, and they have made a big difference in their final season matchup the week after in the Banjo Bowl. Made a huge difference when Trevor Harris threw that interception to seal the game to seal the game in that game. This is going to be another close match. It's going to come down to whether or not Winnipeg can move the ball on the running side. If Brady Oliveira gets over 100 yards, they win this game. And I think Zach Collaros has to do just enough, not turn the ball over, be his regular efficient self, maybe get a big passing play in there, maybe get a big passing play to stretch the field and score a touchdown. Flip side of the ball, same thing. If Saskatchewan can control the clock, if they win the possession war, time of possession war, they win this game. But at the end of the day, my gut tells me, my heart says Saskatchewan. I gotta go with my head here and go with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. This will be a matchup. This will be a rematch of last year's Grey Cup, I believe.
That's a very solid, logical analysis, and there's a very good chance that it could happen. And I already went against you with the last pick and said that the Argos were going to make it. And I think I'm going to have to do it again. I'm going to be completely wrong probably because one of these two teams is going to not win, and potentially both probably. And we'll talk about it next week when we come back. But I can't not believe in this team. They've won 5 out of the last 6 games, and that being the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I just have to show them some love, especially when you got Alouette, who's cooking again with 2 touchdowns in the past game, running for over 70 yards in double-digit attempts and rushing. Then I have to take a look at the fact that their defense has been cooking too. And I think it's going to be a really, really, really good test for the other side. When you look at the Blue Bombers, who, I talked about the Rough Riders getting hot at the end. They've been hot for 9 out of the last 10 weeks winning their games. Like 9 out of the last 10 games of the season, they won. And took me by surprise, especially when you go back and you look at the channel and you see the type of reel I put up with Ryan earlier in the season. Throwing some shade on the Blue Bombers and how embarrassing of a team it was to see coming straight from the Grey Cup, playing the Alouettes and coming back into the season and playing like a bunch of dumpster Pelicans. That's how I felt. And they proved me wrong 9 out of the last 10 weeks, and they are probably going to prove me wrong again. But because I've had so much belief in the Rough Riders this season, and that belief got us all the way to the division finals, I got to keep having the faith. And just so I can potentially say Saskatchewan Rough Riders for a couple more weeks, I'm going to have to do it right here and now and stay believing in the team. And I think it would be a pretty cool matchup for CFL fans to see something different in the Grey Cup finals this year.
Yeah. One of us is going to be right. One of us is going to be wrong for both.
Yes.
For both these matchups. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to being entertained for almost 7 hours tomorrow.
We'll have college football. We'll have CFL. Following day, we'll have NFL. Great weekend for football. If you're in the area tonight, you got probably your local high school football. Get on out and support your local teams. But here and now, we're going to take it to the post-game report and wrap this show on up with a bow before we head on out towards the weekend of great football.
Hey, hey, hey! Who's giving them the business?
Total Football Talk Extra.
As long as it's warm. It's great. I love it.
That time in the show where we talk about our final thoughts heading into this week in professional football action. Let's take it to Mr. McCarthy and see what he has to say to wrap this thing on up with a bow.
All right, I'm going to stay in the CFL this week for my post-game thoughts. And I want to offer congratulations to the city of Calgary. Now, you've been through a lot this CFL season with your team being absolute garbage on the field. 4-4. They went 4-13-1. The defense was terrible. The offense was just as bad. But today, you got rewarded with being able to host the 113th Grey Cup in the year 2026. And this was the announcement today from the Canadian Football League in conjunction with the city of Calgary and Tourism Calgary. The press release says, and I quote here from Commissioner Randy Ambrosi, who will not be commissioner at that time. They'll have a new commissioner in the CFL. Maybe it's yours truly. You don't know. But he says, and I quote, "We're beyond thrilled to bring the Grey Cup back to Calgary in 2026. And of course, we're most excited for Canadian football fans everywhere. Whether you're from the East Coast and you've never experienced the Grey Cup, or you're a Calgarian, this will be your 50th. We can't wait for you to see what's in store. We're blown away by the Stampeders' bid. We look forward to seeing their incredible vision transformed into a reality." Close quote. And I'm hoping for the best for Calgary. You know, last year wasn't such a great year in the Canadian Football League for your Stampeders. We joked on this show about calling them dead horses for the last 2 months of the year. And this is good for you because there's talk about McMahon Stadium being, talked from watching the Rod Peterson show and seeing the comments and the stadium fans kind of poo-pooing the stadium because it's older. They share the field with the University of Calgary. Go Dinos. Yes. University of Calgary football team. Their nickname is the Dinos, as in dinosaurs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this is good for the city of Calgary, and hopefully with ownership, they're trying to obtain a football-only stadium in downtown. They want to be able to have their own football stadium. They want to share the facility with anybody else. They want their own facility, and hopefully this bid will show the CFL, show the city, hey, we're deserving of a football stadium for our team with updated facilities, modern facilities. It can't be this stadium anymore at the university. And for the city of Calgary, great, good for you. Good for you. I know it's between them and Edmonton for the 2026 Grey Cup. I'm pretty sure Edmonton will get the 2027 or Ottawa. We don't really know. We won't find out until the end of next year where the 2027 Grey Cup is going to be. Hopefully, we'll both be there. Me and Drew will both be at that Grey Cup. Freezing our butts off at McMahon Stadium, drinking in the fun and having some fun, and maybe making some great content. But congratulations. I know you endured a bad season for your Roughriders, but this was good news today for the city of Calgary and for the Stampeders. They'll be able to host the 2026 Grey Cup in their home city, the 113th edition. So congratulations to you, and we hope you have a great in 2 years and 2 seasons, in mid-November 2026. It'll be a great Grey Cup.
That'd be awesome. They definitely deserve something, but at the same time, they deserve a better product on the field, that being the Stampeders, for as big as Calgary is, and especially for the love from the fan base. I've experienced this, with the Washington Commanders, for the majority of my life, since being a young kid to now the team that has been absolutely terrible, and now things have shifted, and hopefully, we've had some flash in the pan seasons throughout that time frame, but at the same time, this is the first one since 2012 that, a team from this franchise has given us hope. So hopefully, the Calgary Stampeders and the CFL can feel something like that, but at least it's good news for them, hosting a Grey Cup. So I definitely understand, what you're saying, and definitely a great take by you there, sir. With that being said, you're welcome. With that being said, with my closing thoughts, I'm just glad that we're finally here in an episode recapping a game and previewing games that were really good, as far as the caliber of teams that were playing in these matchups, because for so long we had teams that we were talking about that were not of those caliber throughout the regular season, and with all the different bye weeks throughout the regular season and the way that everything was. This is a real big learning experience for me. I've been, covering NFL and talking NFL for several years, but this is the first real year, besides watching some things inconsistently as a fan of football throughout the CFL, that I've covered things from beginning to end of a season. And we covered all 21 weeks of the regular season through last week. And this is our first week, I guess now week 22 of covering the playoffs included. So we'll have pretty much 24 weeks of coverage throughout the CFL once we get through the Grey Cup. And then, we'll talk a little bit more, Ryan and I will, off the air, figuring out, things and ideas to get some other Total Football Talk extra episodes out there throughout some other football content. But basically just wanted to end this show by letting you guys know that even though the CFL is coming to a close, I'm not planning on, shutting this show down, this project down, until CFL ramps back up again. There's got to be a little bit more planning to figure out, because say we keep Total Football Talk going as a weekly program, when CFL does start back up, there's going to be that filler of time to keep that going. So there's definitely many things that we have to figure out, but I can at least say is while we have the NFL going strong throughout another part of the season, we will be able to find, whether it's college or arena football or something, there's other different ways we can talk Total Football Talk extra action out here. Or even if it's, getting up and covering certain things within the NFL that Cole and I can't quite get to cover within the time frame that we have on Mondays. I can find a creative way to get back into talking more NFL and getting Ryan to talk more NFL too, along with other people that I would like to bring in as a rotation or maybe as an addition with us throughout some of these episodes to give their spin on things. But as we wrap up the CFL, there's nobody else better than Mr. McCarthy that I could think of that I know that I would be able to have these type of great conversations within the game of CFL and Canadian football. So I want to take this time to discuss that and thank him for, making this work, where we now have 10 episodes. Ooh. Total Football Talk Extra, covering the dubs and covering the...
Stop it. Get some help.
I will not. When it comes to those of you out there in the chat who have had things to say and who have engaged with us throughout different points of the show, this episode or in previous episodes.
What's that?
Gotta give you all your love where you can. If not, it would be a
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
kind of moment, and I don't need those kind of
surprise, motherfucker.
All right. Just trying to keep things on a good pace. But, Mr. McCarthy, it's now time for us to wrap things on up with the people. I hope you have a good rest of the week there, sir. Look forward to covering more football with you next week. And with that being said, we only have one more thing left to do, and that's look at one badass outro. From Mr. Ryan McCarthy to my right, and myself, Drew Willingham, everyone, as always, stay safe out here in these streets.